Happy Monday, everyone, and welcome to our live demonstration. Thanks for joining us this Monday, halfway through January already. I can't believe it. I don't know where the year's going. We are joined today, and you're seeing a little bit of a tour from Jason Milky, Erwin. He's a barber at Schorem, one of our scumbag barbers, and his filming editor, his cameraman today. Sorry, I don't have any good words. His cameraman today is Duncan Bailey, live from the old school. So, Jason, I see you talking, but I can't hear you. So, guys, we've got a little technical issue here. Let me shoot a message, kids watching us. Hold on, and let's see if we can't sort this out. We love technology, don't you? I'm just sending a text right now. We'll come back, I promise. As soon as I get a hold of Jason and we can hear him, we'll make sure that you can hear him as well. Thanks for staying with us. Sorry about this. Those are Duncan's shoes. He's a snazzy dresser if you've never met him. Hang tight, friends. I promise you I'm sending frantic text messages to both gentlemen, trying to tell them that we can't hear them. Actually, don't go anywhere. I'm going to mute myself right now and I'm going to call them. So hang on, please. All right, everyone. I just, did you see Jason looking kind of funny? Like, why is my phone ringing? So that was me calling him, and he's going to try to figure this out. Thanks so much for your patience. It's a Monday for sure, right? one of those crazy days. So, because he's got some really cool, good stuff to share with us. Let's hope Jason and Duncan can sort it out. Oh, and we lost them, but hold on. Here we go. We're going to add them back to the stream. Jason, we can hear you.
Yes, we're back on my phone now, but we're just going to plug it in.
Okay.
Turn it around.
Well, everybody stayed with us, so thank you, everyone, for staying with us. They were all there.
Okay, perfect. Donnie's just going to be standing to this side then.
All right.
Okay, you guys heard nothing?
Jason, we heard, actually, you started talking while I was introducing you and Duncan, and we heard absolutely nothing. So like that movie, Groundhog Day, back it up and start it all over again. And I'll take myself out.
I got all the kinks out.
It's all you now.
I'm Milky the Barber, coming from the Old School Barber Academy, Schorem's Barber Academy in Rotterdam. If you can look really hard out the window, you can see the shop across the street. But as this is education, we thought it'd be best to do it in the school for you guys. I will be doing a haircut today, but I just wanted to bring up a few things first to talk about before I get into the haircut for you guys. The two things I want to talk about are currently we're in lockdown right now in the Netherlands. So I would love to bring you a live model, but unfortunately we're going to have to be working on the mannequin here today. This is the first haircut I've done in probably about 6 weeks too, because we've been in lockdown. So I've actually done a little bit of pre-cutting. I'll talk to you about what I did before. And then what I'm going to show you today, it's going to be a lot about texture. It's going to be a lot about how to finish your haircuts with that real wow factor. So we're in lockdown right now. That we have masks policy in a lot of businesses. The reason I'm not wearing a mask right now is Duncan's wearing a mask. I've got about 2 meters of distance between me and Duncan. We're the only ones in the school. Duncan and I are colleagues as well. So we thought the best way to get the most education to you guys were if we keep as much distance as we can. I work on a mannequin, and we make sure that you can not only see me, you can hear me as well. And then the other thing I wanted to talk about is we've got a super exciting anniversary coming up for the shop on February 6th. We've got the 10 years of Scum coming up. It will be 10 years since they first opened the doors at this location. And yeah, I guess that was 2011, February 6th. And we're going to be doing a live stream featuring 3 of the best Dutch rock and roll, psychobilly, punk rock bands, Speedmobile, Batmobile, and De Nachtse Banana, streaming from Rotterdam's coolest hardcore metal venue, Baruch. You can check in on that. More details are on the Reuzel page, the Old School page, the Schorem page. And that's going to be February 6th, streaming from I think all of our platforms, actually. So we'd love to see you for that. We do a little mosh in all of our own living rooms, keeping a respectful amount of distance on our walls of death. But this is the best we can do, unfortunately. Scumbash 4.2. So let's get straight into the cut then, guys. What I've got is, as you can tell, there's a lot of hair already on the ground here. I've taken a lot off the model already. Like I said, it's been about 6 weeks since my last haircut, so I'm a little bit rusty, so I thought it'd be best if we got straight into the texture so I could do a lot of talking. I didn't have to be focused on getting this done as fast as I can. So what I did is I used our Way of the Ancient Scumbag. I sectioned off the top at that parietal ridge. I pulled this away. I elevated all that hair. I set that baseline. I pulled it over. I made that connection. I checked for any excess length on top, making sure that front's the longest. It's stuff we've been over in every live stream we've done. We've got hours and hours and hours of footage on it on the DVD, on our YouTube channel. If you have questions about what I did in the wet hair, go to the YouTube channel, check back on any of our old live demonstrations. It's all going to be there for you guys. So you've got so much content to look at there. So I want to go straight into the blow dry, talk a little bit about that, and then I want to really take our time and talk about the way we can texturize these haircuts to give it those finishing details, those special touches for your customer. Talk about the way that the patterns of hair growth affect these things, the way density of hair affects these things, and really make sure that you get how to use texture to make hair behave a certain way and move from this kind of length in the front all the way to this kind of length in the back. So we're going to start with the blow dry. If you want to do a really good textured haircut, you have to be very aware of what you are doing in the blow dry. You don't want to take any of the natural fall out of the hair because you have to make sure that the texture is serving utility in the cut. That the texture will lift hair, it'll move hair. So you want to make sure that the hair is still itself when you blow dry it. It also means you want to have the hair be very dry. If you put in too much of a very wet product when you blow dry the hair, and it stays greasy, the hair is going to get heavy. It's going to stick together in a different way. You want dryness because you want the hair to lift up. You want the hair to lift apart. And you want to really be able to see just the natural hair. So what I'm going to go for is the Surf Tonic. We put the Surf Tonic. I'm going to go for the Surf Tonic, which we have here. This is the Reuzel Surf Tonic. All it's going to do is make the hair a little bit drier, give it a little bit extra hold, but it's going to keep the hair really natural. It's just going to give that kind of beachy feeling. But the nice thing with the Surf Tonic over going for the clay or the clay spray or anything like that is that the Surf Tonic is very soft. So it's not going to make the hair rigid. It's not going to make the hair crunchy. It's not going to make it really dried into shape. This will still just be the hair when we're done with it. So this also means we have to pay a lot of attention to how we're using the hair dryer. So I'm going to go in with a vent brush to keep the natural fall. And then the hair dryer, I'm going to turn on full force at the start. I'm only going to turn it to medium heat though, because I really want to get those roots dried very naturally. So I'm going to start by just moving the hair across the head in both directions. And then once the roots are dried in a natural way, I'll start to look more into what I need to manipulate to create volume to really help the hair express itself. Especially when you're working with a lot of length. Fortunately, that means you're also working with a lot of weight. So you can really just brush that hair up because the weight of the hair is also going to force it to the back when you dry it. By raking that hair up the head too, you can see already that because I'm going straight up the head, you're already getting that really square angle. I mean, I've been blow drying for 1 second, so just breaking all that hair up over the head and then flat over the head here. Give it just a little bit of air so it can move around. Don't be afraid to use your hands either. Again, we're going for something very natural in the blow dryer. Well, and then remember, even when you're drying this side is drying at the same time, especially when you're working on a human head. It's radiating heat, so those roots are drying from the heat of the head as well. So you want to make sure you're pushing up and moving the hair around on both sides, and you're aware of where that hair is laying at all times. Notice all this motion. Just moving it over, all across the head. Bring it up a little with your fingers, just see where it wants to go. You can see already all that work we did in the dry hair, or in the wet hair, that you can go back and look at our other demos for, is already taking shape with just that little bit of a super dry product. And this means that when we go into the texturizing phase, we're going to really be able to see how we break that shape up. Because I think the best way to get good texture in a haircut is to create a really strong geometric shape, something that's very straight lines, very straight angles, and then you loosen that. And that's how you get a textured haircut rather than just messy hair. And just moving that hair around. And then once you get those roots really nice and dry, you want to start thinking about what the final haircut's going to be, which for us is going to be this really kind of textured pomp look. I'm going to talk a little bit to why I picked that haircut for the demo as well. I just want to make sure that this is really easy to forget as well. When you're blow drying, is a lot of people, I'll see them, they forget to dry this area, and if anything, this is the most important area to dry, that crown area, because that's going to give you the most trouble, and if you leave it wet, you're not really seeing how that crown is laying in the haircut. So we're just going to keep on moving that hair around. You can see I saved so much length because I wanted to make sure that we have a lot of hair to work with. I know that a lot of people, and they're right, are going to say that customers don't come in asking for these haircuts. They don't come in asking for the length. But everything I'm showing you today can be transmitted into even as short a haircut as a flat top. And this is just a great haircut to talk about these techniques with, especially with what the mannequin comes in with. You know, this is something you could do on a longer layer haircut. It's also something you could do, on that razor faded pompadour, because we'll talk a lot about texturizing the fade. So I picked this cut because it's a great haircut to learn on, even if it's not a haircut you see behind the chair on a daily basis. Just moving that hair. And then once that hair is almost completely dry, once you've really got a lot of that hair into shape, I like to go in with my Denman styling brush and just start to put on the final little details to make sure I haven't created any kinks or any incorrect movements with my Denman. This is a great way to just kind of give it a little extra volume. Brush that hair over. And again, as much as now I'm putting a little effort into the styling of the hair, it's not a lot. It's nothing that I wouldn't be confident that the customer couldn't do just by combing their hair in the morning. Because to do a good haircut, it has to be a haircut that can be recreated. Even if you're looking at something as wild and as crazy as like a cycle clip, you can look at the people that used to wear the cycle clip, the guys that used to go wrecking at Club Foot, and they would put the cycle clips on. Just because you don't think it's practical for every customer doesn't mean it's unrealistic for every customer. Moving that hair around. And then this is, once you've got that hair almost completely where you want it to be, especially when you're working on textured haircuts, again, medium force or medium heat, high force. I'm going to look at how the hair grows out of the roots. It's growing this direction and it's growing this direction. And I'm going to scrunch it the opposite way. And this is going to create a lot of lift for us. It's going to create a lot of texture for us. You can see already what that's doing, especially with a little bit of that surf tonic in the hair. And that breaks up all those really tight lines that the Denman brush drives into the hair as well, so that we can see a little bit more of that looseness in the cut. Personally, I think this looks really nice when you have that nice pump and it just breaks up a little bit, because it has a little bit more of the rock and roll feeling. It feels a little less like the customer is just walking out of the barber shop and a little bit more like the customer is just coming off stage. And I think that that I'm all dressed up, but I've got a little attitude as well, is so much cooler looking in a guy than just having every hair exactly where it needs to be, and there's nothing besides that. So you can see this is just our basic blunt clump cut shape. Already you're getting those strong geometric lines. Already you're getting that square angle, but clearly there's a lot of work to be done. So before we go into the real texture, the real loosening of the cut, we have to cross-check our geometry in the cut. So I'm going to go in, and that's where we're going to start to do these details, like this bit here, this in the back, get this a little bit more even, and that we're going to be doing clipper overcut.
Hey, Jason.
Yes.
I just want to remind everybody, because we had a rough start in the beginning and we lost a little bit of you talking. If you've got any questions or comments or feedback, just type them in the page, and then I'll interrupt Jason and we'll get your questions answered for you. So,
absolutely. I'm happy to answer any questions on what we've done so far, as well as if you guys want to talk a little bit about what I did in the wet hair before this, we can talk about that as well. We've got plenty of time. We're making good time, actually. If you have questions about other products you could use for this, I could talk a little bit about the choice between the surf tonic or the clay spray. I could talk maybe about blow drying one of the pomades into the hair. I've left a lot to the other demonstrators, the other live streams that have happened. But I'm happy to talk about everything that they've talked about as well. So if there are no questions now, though, I'll get into kind of the detail work we're going to start doing. I'm going to crank this up a little. It's easier to see. And again, thank you for bearing with us when you couldn't hear me as well. I appreciate everyone staying around for that. We're sorry about that.
Yeah, a little technical.
Yeah. So you can see we're getting a flow in there already. That looks really nice, but clearly there's some stuff going on there, and we want to sharpen it up around the ear. So we can take all this hair. You want to start with your teeth end. This is super important because this is how you get all the hair out. So you can see exactly what you're working with. So then you can just go in and take that away and see, okay, so we got to, this is a great technique actually. I'll talk a little bit about how this works. Is when you see weight in a haircut, it's a straight line bending around a round object. So what that creates is weight lines. And weight lines doesn't mean that your line's wrong. It just means that the straight line you've cut in the hair is bending around an object. So taking out weight doesn't always mean going shorter. Sometimes it's about taking thickness out of the ends so that that line is diffused. A great way to do this visually, and you want to use your eyes and your ears at the same time, is you look into the haircut, and you can see where you get like a crease there, and you can just take that crease out a little bit just by going over the surface. This technique actually originates not in men's hair cutting, not in barbering, but it originates in doing triangular graduations and bobs. This is something, I don't know if any of you saw, but I did a really cool training with Rob this week on a mannequin. And this is something we talked about a lot, is not only the techniques that these two trades can steal from each other, but the techniques we've already talked about, the trade stealing, is blending techniques like this. Is you would not see maybe a clipper in a salon, but they would have a trimmer, so they can just bevel the edge so that that round shape can come into play there. This is also a great way if you need to take off a lot of length, like in here, to see exactly what the shape needs to do, is you can just start taking out that width there. And you can see it's a fast way of working. Is then immediately I can see all that needs to go. Just a little bit there.
Jason?
Yes?
The question is your clipper closed while you're doing that freehand work?
Oh, yes, absolutely. All the way closed. If it's open, you can see that it's not going to cut the same way. That distance is, you're not going to be able to do anything with it because the hair is going to move. You're going to get your cue that you're hitting the hair, but nothing's going to come off because the teeth are cutting so far away. I always zero gap my clippers as well. So they're really tight. So you get that really tight, all the way closed. And then you just break up the hair like this.
Thank you.
That's a great way to take weight out without having to fully check every line too. It's a really fast technique. And I think that's something that's great about the education we focus on, is it's not just, here's a way to do the perfect haircut in a perfect environment. In an environment like this, where if I wanted to cut this mannequin for 3.5 hours, it wouldn't be a problem. This is also a great technique when you're doing a haircut in 30 minutes. When you see something in a long haircut, you can do it with the clippers. You don't have to take 10 little sections. You can do this in 30 minutes in your salon if you take half-hour appointments. If it's walk-in and you're too many customers are in the shop, you're not going to get out of work until 2 hours late, this is a technique that can get you through your haircuts, not just have you sitting behind the chair doing a perfect haircut on a perfect head of hair in a perfect environment. And I think that's really important about our education, and the way this method is this is how we cut in the shop. This is how we do the haircuts we post on our Instagram. This is how we teach real barbers to do real haircuts in real shop time. So then we can start to look at the details a little bit on the other side of the cut now as well. Again, this is not the texturizing. This is the refinement. This is where we took all of our strong lines and we're now making sure that those strong lines are reflective of what we want the final picture to be. You can go in. You can look for that weight. I mean, this is exactly the stuff, you see in a haircut is you're like, all my lines were correct. All my hair cutting was right, but it's still not quite perfect because heads aren't perfect, because hair isn't perfect. It's going to move. It's going to bend. There's going to be a weird wave in one spot and not in the other. That's part of why mannequins are so almost weird to cut on, is because the hair doesn't have the same personality. It's not like there's a wave on one side and on the other side it's bone straight. It's not like the density is so radically different on the hairline versus in the top of the head versus in the nape. So that's part of why, again, this is an education. This is tools you can take to real haircuts on the shop floor, not just tools that you can use on perfect haircuts on perfect customers. I think this is something that, Duncan wants to say something about it as well. With the education we do in the school, is we use all live models because we want to show that these techniques are not just about endless time doing one type of haircut. This is how you can do a slick back. This is how you do a crop. You could even, if I wanted to leave all this length, I could have done a mullet.
If I can cut into that, that is true. Our main argument is that when you get into your own shop again, after you've been into the school, you're going to get all real people in your chairs. You're not going to cut mannequins all day because they don't pay your bills. That's simple as is. So you're going to have to deal with all different types of hair, thickness, different types of densities, curls, straight hair, different styles that customers prefer. So it's all these different elements. And I think that's very valuable. What we do in the school is that we have a big pool of real models with real hair that you can work on and practice on, and also give you maybe sometimes the surprises or the little treasures or challenges that you would have in a normal shop day as well.
Well, Duncan's so right there that this is the stuff. This is how you learn to manage those treasures or those kind of uncomfortable surprises in a haircut. especially because, again, we do symmetrical haircuts. The average haircut is going to be the same on both sides, even though the average head is not the same on both sides. Eyes are going to be off, ears are going to be off. Some people have a really strong occipital bone and a really weak occipital bone. Maybe there's a giant mole or a cyst. There is not symmetry, and what we're trying to create is visual symmetry. And these kind of freehand techniques make managing visual symmetry so important, because you look in the mirror and you go, okay, that looks the same on both sides. And then you turn them away from the mirror so they don't play with their hair the whole time.
Yeah. That's also a thing that a lot of people find surprising when we turn away our models, when we turn them away from the mirror. They always want to turn them back, and we give them a little slap on the wrist. So we don't work that way. We turn away from the mirror.
The number of times I've had customers move chairs trying to turn it, and the chair's like hopping across the shop. Oh, it's so funny.
It does. That must be hilarious. Except for the flat top. That might be the only exception.
Oh, absolutely. And checking the mirror is great. That you saw. I just checked it in the mirror, but then you can move away. So all the work I've done right now is on the long sides. And I know that most haircuts you do in the shop are going to have short sides. So I'll show you how I use this exact same technique, though, to blend in and blend out weight in the crown right there. As you can see, I can still just take weight out by doing that. Absolutely no problem. Just looking for those creases and breaking it up. See, right there. And then you can also check, maybe there's a little bit of a length problem. But again, now you're using just your eyes to do this. I would love to be doing a fade for you guys today as well, because I haven't faded in so long. And if any of you know my my Instagram or the education I normally do, I'm all about the fades and the fades and the fades. But I was not going. I felt like it would be doing a disservice to like could teach you guys, as well as a disservice to. I mean, we would all look at the fade and go, "Well, that looks a bit shit," because the mannequin hair is definitely not designed for fading.
No, true.
Yeah. So I'm just stealing a page out of Duncan's book and doing more.
Yeah, I mean, you know, like you say with the mannequins, it's the implants weird.
Yeah, and the density is low.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we've got some of that weight out. You can see that we're getting a nice flow on the sides. There's a lot of texture going on there, even with just that scraping technique, which is really not about texturizing. But you can see, too, that we're already starting to get that little loose, like crybaby in the front. This is something that when you see how it lays, when you just run your fingers through it, that's how the customer is going to wear their hair, is when they can just run their fingers through it. Because the average guy is not spending his whole day quaffing his hair in the mirror. He's got stuff to do. He's busy. He's a human being, the same as the rest of us. So now we're going to start looking for what we need the hair to do inside of the haircut. And that's things like lift or lay back or take weight out. So we can look already and see I've gotten a lot of the weight out of the sides, but I need this area to lay back more. And there's still some weight in there. So I've got my blending shears now, and I'm going to go in, I'm going to check for that weight. And you can see that what I'm working with is I'm not going in like this. I'm going in and I'm looking for the areas, and I'm just taking a little bit out, just a little bit of hair there. And what that's going to do is texture is about kind of ultimately this one question, is what does the short hair do to the long hair, and what is the long hair going to do to the short hair? So with this sliding motion, I'm thinking about how these short hairs that I'm putting into the cut are going to lift those long, or push those long hairs back. Because what I'm taking away is the hair that kind of resists to going back. So just sliding through. This will also create feather shapes that when the customer runs the fingers through his fingers through his hair, or her fingers through her hair, or their fingers through their hair, they will be able to, you can see the hair is going to look different each time. And this is not, when I take those lines out again, thin on the ends. Is when I take that line out, so you can see there's the disconnection, that's still nice and full on the ends. That's not thin hair. It's not just blended so you can't see what I did wrong. I'm not hiding mistakes. I'm looking in the cut for the flow, and I'm drawing into the flow. It's just that motion. What's really important, too, is you have the right tools to do this. This technique does not work if you're, to be fair and unfortunate, if your teeth are on the bottom, this technique is not going to work as well. It's really going to pull the hair. It's worth it to invest in the right tools for what you're doing. I use the Mizutani blenders. I think they have like 28 teeth or something like that. But what's really important too is this curved blade on the bottom, because that allows the hair to slide through it. This is also a technique, though, if you don't have those tools, and I understand that especially after the year everyone's had, that going out and buying a new expensive pair of scissors is not probably at the top of your bucket list. You can also do this with a razor if you want. If you want to go in with a straight razor and you can drag it through the hair, I mean, that technique is as old as barbering itself, and that'll create a similar effect because you'll take away that short hair, or you create short hair out of the long hairs that resist the flow. And you can see already what a transition, what smoothness we're getting there. And I haven't taken that much hair out. You saw that it's not about thinning, it's about blending. We get a lot of questions about the blending shears, so I don't know if someone said anything, but I'm happy to answer or argue or whatever people's concerns are.
That was perfect timing, Jason, because here's a comment. It says, I would have used this technique first and then used the clipper. Now you will have shorter hair pushing the longer hair out, and you are rendering the haircut shapeless. Am I wrong?
Yes.
Well, you're not supposed to actually be that honest. Can you explain? I said, don't be that honest with our viewers. But can you explain, please, why you did it that way?
I went in with the clippers first because I saw the surface had weight that had to come out of it. There were issues on the surface, and that technique works on the surface. I am not affecting the shape at all of the haircut because I'm not taking any length out of the haircut at all. The shape I set in is strong, blunt lines. You can see that every line in this haircut, Duncan, if you want to come around.
Absolutely.
Every line I do in this haircut is a blunt line. It's not going to be a very dense line because of the mannequin, but it's a blunt line. It's a straight line. When I take the length on the side here, step around. When I take a length on the side here, even after I blend it, it's a blunt, straight line. You can see it's solid. That is what creates the shape. What I'm doing now with the texturizing and the blending is accentuating that shape. So I'm not taking off enough hair to abolish the shape, to get rid of the shape. All I'm doing now is I'm moving the hair around to see where the hair doesn't like how it lays. I scrape a little off the surface, or I go in and I take out long hair that's a problem that's deeper down the hair strand. Does that make sense?
We will see. Thank you for explaining. One more question for you. What's the difference with teeth on the bottom versus the top of your blending shears like you just showed us?
The bottom, you have the moving blade is the cutting blade. So I think it takes out a little bit more hair. And then on the top, it takes out a little bit less hair because the moving blade is the tooth blade. But most important, because that also is something that can be affected by the number of teeth in the blenders, the spacing, the type of teeth in the blenders, is that when the blade is on the bottom and you're moving the slicing blade, when you do it like this and the teeth are on the bottom, the hair sits in the blade and you can't slide through the hair. When the teeth are on the top, this blade is sliding through the hair. You can see even without closing it, I can comfortably move it through the hair. And then this is cutting out the hair in the slice.
Thank you. Great explanations.
So now, again, I'm keeping that blunt line. And this actually kind of goes back to the question we had before about taking out the shape, is I'm keeping this blunt line here. You can see that's a really strong, heavy line. And if I want to, I can go in with my clipper. I mean, this is ridiculous. I would never do this in the shop, but this is just to show that technique. I can go in like that, and I can just take out a little bit of length moving down the shear, or moving down the strand, and that line is still in there, but it's a little bit softer now. But if you want a little bit more control, if you want a little bit less just working on the silhouette of the haircut, which is what that scraping technique was for, is for silhouette, it's for profile, and you want to work down the hair strand a little bit more, you see I can open that hair up, and then I can take out bulk down the hair strand, keeping that strong line. But what this does is not only opens up so these hair ends have more air so they can move around, but this actually allows the hair to grab the product easier as well. is back in the 50s when they used to do the giant beehives, they would always do those with razor cutting because the ends would get really thin. You could roll that around the razor, tease it, hair dry it, brush it out. You'd have this massive coifs. This is the exact same idea, is we want those razored ends almost, those feathered ends, because that's going to create a lot of grip to the hair. So the hair not only has flow, but when you put the product in, the hair glues itself together. And that's something that we'll talk a little bit, especially when you put in the products at the end, that's going to give the hair a lot more ease of styling. It's also going to help it grow in because the hair is going to be lighter. It's not going to get so heavy right away as you would if you just blended the last centimeter of hair. And what we do is with the blending shears over the razor is because we have a little bit more control with the blending shears, because I can lift a hair and cut a hair. I don't have to just hope that the right hair comes out like we would with a razor. So now we're just working a little on the other side. You can see we're getting that flow from what we did with the clipper, but there's still some issues in the flow. Like this is really pushing forward. So I'm going to push that hair down into the head, and I'm going to see on the surface, I'm not like this. This will screw up your haircut. On the surface, just taking a little bit, you can see it's almost nothing coming off, but what is coming off is making a huge difference as to how that lays back. Again, we're keeping our solid lines. We're keeping our strong, I mean, there's a disconnection there. We're going to talk about that in a minute. We're keeping our solid lines. We want these blunt lines in the haircut, but we just want the hair to flow a little bit nicer. So there is a disconnection in this haircut. This is the same one that we always use when we're doing our any of our haircuts, is I've disconnected in front of the ear here, the top and the sides. So if I take my little parting here, you can see, boom, there's that crisp disconnection. What this is this kind of dictates the style. So I left that disconnection because I want to save all this hair to play with later. This is just shape. This is just kind of utility. It's how short the customer wants to have it. It's how long you need to keep the crown for it to lay down. This is really where you develop that freedom as a barber. This is where you start to make decisions for the whole haircut that you want to see in the haircut, not what you have to see in the haircut. Again, if a customer wants 3 millimeters, this is going to be 3 millimeters. And then you know, okay, well, if I want the crown to lay down, it has to be a certain number of centimeters. So this has to be a certain number of centimeters. But this is where it's a little bit freer about what you want to do. Because as long as the customer might say, I don't want it in my eyes, but not wanting it in their eyes, if you pull it straight down like this is different than the fact it naturally falls open. So I've left that disconnection so I have as much hair to play with as I have as much hair as I want to play with later in the cut. It's not gone, because you can never cut hair too long, because you can always take a little bit more off. Just a little bit more blending in there. Body position is so important, guys, and you might see me using some bad body positions, and you're totally free to criticize me for that. I just want you to be able to see the haircut, and sometimes if I'm standing square and directly in front of my work, you wouldn't be able to do so. So you can see already we're getting a lot of texture in there. There's a lot of movement in there. The hair is really behaving in a really cool way, a little bit because of the surf spray, a little bit because of the blow dry, but it's 100% something that you can just do with the haircut. So now we're going to move into the top. So I'm going to take, and I'm going to start checking for weight in the crown here, just because I know that that crown, I have to leave enough weight in to leave long. You see what I'm doing here is I'm taking a section, and I'm pulling it out, wide teeth of the comb, and I'm just laying it on my fingers. See how well organized it is? I can see my line here, and I can just go in, take out that hair, and then I can see that line is still nice and even, but I just want to take a little bit more to make sure that it gets a really nice flow. This is important that you see, okay, I took that section, I moved it away. I'm taking my next section now, because you don't want to overblend, or what you're going to end up with is with thin hair. And we're not thinning, we're just blending and texturizing. Again, because we want to keep all those straight lines we put into the cut already, because we did a perfect geometric shape. And now we're going in and we're trying to give it a little bit more of a natural finish. Let the hair breathe a little bit, give the hair a little bit extra movement. So you can see now that just that little bit lets the crown move around a little bit more, give it a bit of scruffiness, but you can see too that strong square angle that we worked with in the back there as well.
Jason?
Yes.
Question is, do you go straight in or somewhat at an angle?
Oh, when I do that, yeah, let me show you one more time. Is I can go in, let me find another spot we could use it. Is I go, let's take this, where I want to blend this into the sides a bit. Make sure it's not too much for your fingers. Take that into your hand. See, I'm laying it in the direction I want the hair to move. So it's actually coming out of my hands a bit towards the back. And then I'm going almost perpendicular, not to my fingers, or sorry, not perpendicular, parallel, not to my fingers, but to the direction of the hair growth. So this would be if I went perpendicular to my fingers, but instead I want to go parallel to the hair, because the more like this, if I do this, you're going to see a lot of hair come out. If I do this, you're going to see less hair. If I do it like this, you're going to see almost no hair come out. Is that a little bit easier to see that technique now, Carrie?
Yes, thank you.
This is a really important technique. This is how I do all my blending on haircuts in the shop. Because I like to cut a really square line on top. I like to check a really square line here. And then I go through and I break that square line up. I find that this makes it really easy to recreate haircuts too. Because you can see the decisions you made last time in the haircut. Because those square lines, that strong shape is still in there. It's just the ends have air in them. The hair can breathe a little bit, and that will give it a little bit more personality. As silly as it sounds, that will give it a little bit more personality. See, again, look how we got that nice line there. But now you saw when I laid it into my fingers, I laid it the other direction because I want this to flow back. I take a step, so I'm almost standing across the patron now because I want that going straight along the hair strands. That's how much comes out, because I just want that hair to have a little bit of a breath. As you can see, that line is still in there, but those ends just have a little bit of air. This is something you can also do with your straight shears, which I am going to do now on the front, is it's the exact same technique. It's just a point cut, but what's nice with the blenders is when you point cut with them, they take out a little less hair. So you just get a little bit more irregularity. So now I'm doing the same thing, but I'm going to do this in 3 parts. Is I'm going to grab this hair, especially because it's so long, and I'm going to pull it really tight to the head, and I'm going to pull my comb all the way with it to make sure these ends are really straight. I don't want to take too much out here because the mannequin hair is so thin already. Okay, and now, again, all in the comb, it's that one section, and I'm going to grab the hair and I'm going to do it a little bit higher. You can see the comb is still in there. It's still keeping the hair organized. That is really easy to cut into. You don't want to have, organization is everything when you're texturizing because it keeps you in control. And now we're just going to pull it over. And again, you see the comb is still in there just until we get to there. See if there's a little bit left in the ends. And I can do that this direction as well. I want to get a lot of weight out of the top. I'm going to pull it low. I'm going to keep it organized. Organization is everything. Don't be afraid to comb too much. You see the comb is still in there. I'm not even holding it. This is just really the comb and the fingers. Nice and organized. And if you're seeing a lot of weight, you can also do a little bit of this. It really cuts into the hair. But that is what's going to create all that flow in the cut there. The haircut that really, the hand that really makes the haircut is this one. It's the comb. The scissors are going to take away hair, but it's only going to take away the hair that you've combed into your fingers. So it's super important when you do this, you get nice and long, and you get that hair. You see it's all coming out of the roots even, all nice and even, flipped around, and I'm pulling it with the comb. I want to make sure that that stays, see, nice and organized. But nope, I'm not happy with that because of the bend there. So I'll flip it this way to spread it out a little bit more. That's where the length on the side is, and then this is the top. I want to blend this a little bit because I don't like how it's laying. So I'm going into the hair, straight down the hair strands. You see, it's all in the combing. It's all in the organization.
Jason,
Yes.
we have a Zero Gap magazine is sharing your stream and you're live on their page. So
Oh, super cool. I talked to them earlier today, and I was really grateful that they put a post up about me on their Facebook. So thank you very much, Zero Gap Magazine. They're doing a lot of really cool work, actually, making sure that the female barbers in our industry are getting the attention that they deserve. After it's so long being called a men's industry, I think it's so great to see so many incredible female barbers stepping up to the plate and giving us a run for our money, making sure that we know that the game is not just about men doing men's hair.
You realize that in the school they do that every single time, right?
What?
Women, they knock all the guys out of the park every single time.
Well, we've got a couple of our ladies Scumbassadors coming up over the next few weeks doing some of the live demos, so stay tuned to watch them show up, you guys.
Oh, absolutely. I can't tell you how the people that push me in this industry most, I mean, it's the female, it's people like Queen Rockabilly from Poland.
Yeah, she's good.
Ginger Witch from Greece.
She's also really good.
I mean, there are some really famous ones. You take someone like Hayden Cassidy, Jen Winters from... She's in England. What's the name of her barbershop? Jen Winters. Oh, she's great. You can blog at Jen Winters on Instagram. She'll come up. That are really doing... I mean, even the haircut that we're accused of inventing, the Peaky Blinders, that was invented by...
Los Schiavo, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's great.
Oh, incredible.
I love her. She's brilliant.
Again, see, I'm really combing all the way to the ends there, making sure it's nice and even. I'm just taking a little weight out. This is the same thing I did with the blenders, but I'm doing it with the straight shear now to show you that it is in the combing that these techniques are done. It's not in the tool you use, because you could do the same thing with a pair of clippers even if you wanted to. So this is starting to look really cool. You're seeing we're getting a lot of movement in there, a lot of texture. You can see how much that lighten up in the front is giving us this really big shape here, actually. I'm going to use one last technique that, I mean, you can't say it was a Schorem textured haircut without, and that is the bloody knuckles technique. You see Rob do this on almost every haircut. This gives you so much control in the haircut, is you get that hair kind of loosened up into the shape you want to see. You run your fingers through at the roots. And again, I'm not doing this. I'm not chewing on that hair, trying to take length off. What I'm doing is I'm going over the surface here. And it's not about taking a lot of length off. It's about taking the length that resists the shape off. Yeah. This is saving length in the front. It's ironing flatter that crown.
You're following the shape of the head.
And you're really following the shape of the head. Duncan teaches this one probably more than I do.
Oh, absolutely. It scares the living daylights out of the students.
Yeah.
Rob always calls this making the haircut bespoke.
Yeah, well, that's a great way of putting it, because this is really where it will change completely depending on the customer's head shape.
Yeah. It's a beautiful technique to use. It
also gives us a little bit more of a blend into that disconnection and transition on the sides. Disconnection, actually, this is a great point, and I learned this from watching Mark Hayes' videos. He's one of the guys, I think he is the creative director for Sassoon, is he uses disconnection in his haircuts to create texture. Is he'll do a short panel and then a long panel that lays over it and then a short panel, and that creates texture because there's air, the hair moves. Don't be afraid to use disconnection, to do a really long front that's completely disconnected from the sides. That'll create disconnection, especially if a customer wants this long, kind of loose, floppy front with a fade. Disconnection is going to make that look super cool. The risk you run, though, is when the whole haircut's disconnected, you don't have maybe the right silhouette. It juts out in places. You don't have as much control. So it's about using disconnection tactfully to really think about what the hair is going to do. What's this hair going to do shorter? What's this hair going to do longer? What's this hair going to do when it's heavier? What's this hair going to do when it's light? Move this around. We're pretty much, when it comes to the texture and the shape, I'm really happy with where we're at now, actually. So I'm going to do just another quick little blow dry. this is great too, because that means you get all the little hairs out without having to wash the hair again. So I'm actually going to put, which we don't do in the shop, because if I've done this much work, I'm not going to also then wash it. I'm going to use a little bit of our fiber gel. I've already used the Surf Tonic, so I don't want to put much in, but this little bit of fiber gel, I'll show you the two both. The fiber gel.
Just give me a hand again.
Oh, yeah, you can see it's that little bit there. It's just that. But what this does is when you dry it in the hair, it gives a lot of strength to the roots, but keeps the hair super dry. So I'm really putting it with just my fingers, and I'm really making sure it's down to the roots. All the way in. Again, friction is texture too. Texture is not just length, but texture is grip to the hair. The back combing is texturizing the hair. There's a lot of different ways to do texture. That's why texture powder exists. Texture doesn't cut hair. Texture is about air. So we can go through, starting with just our fingers, because we're going for a looser look. And just cross the head with that blow dryer. Give it a bit of grip. Boom. You can also not only do this at the roots here, but if you get to the ends, you can do this. You can texturize them like this now. Because you've done the haircut looks good, now you can style the hair a little bit more with the haircut. Because you know now that the good part of the haircut's not going to wash out, this is all just little details to style. So now we've got a lot of texture, a really nice shape going there. And again, this is a shape that you could do just as easily with the sides gone. It's a shape you could do with really long sides that want to stick out and hang down a little bit. It's a shape that can lay like this. It's also a shape that if the customer is like feeling lazy, or you did a really nice haircut to take a picture for your Instagram and all that guy really wants was a slick back, you can also slick it flat and it's going to work. What we're going to do today, I'm going to show you the two products I would use depending on what look the customer wanted to go for. Because the great part about texture is when you slick texture, it's slick. But texture also can be expressed with a matte product. So this is something you can get a lot of versatility out of looks with. So I'm going to go for the matte styling paste we've got here. I'm just going to take a little bit though. Especially with natural hair, you don't want to then do a natural haircut and then turn it into Lego hair with product. If they want their hair to be natural, they want to be able to run their fingers through it.
And if they want Lego hair?
If they want Lego hair, then
they'll get Lego
they're
hair.
probably not getting a natural haircut.
No, true.
Because natural is about movement.
Yes.
Products on the hands. And again, really into the roots. Really into the roots. Especially in the front, you want to make sure that those ends are as soft as possible. Because that's, you don't need a lot of products with a matte product because you don't need to make the ends look shiny. The ends are just going to look like themselves anyways. So you want them to be able to move and bounce and keep the wave. So you want to really work it with your fingers there. You can work it with the palm to give it a little extra texture. And then all that extra crap on your hands, you just want to slick through the sides because that's the part they don't want to have to worry about. They're not going to run their hands through that. They're just going to run their hands through the front. This is where it's hard with a mannequin.
Yeah, I mean,
I have heavy hands.
a little bit of anchoring on the bottom and we'll be fine.
You just want to show off the shoe shine, don't you?
Shut up.
So now, because we've got all of that friction, I'm going to go through with a hair pick. I'm just going to get those ends out a little bit.
I think this is also the thing with the mannequin hair is that it's really rigid.
But you can also do some really cool stuff with it because of that rigidity.
You can go full Jimmy Neutron on that.
Which is, I think, kind of what we did, honestly. I think I have elicited a certain Jimmy Neutron vibe from this mannequin. Which is cool, I guess.
It's a look.
It's a look. So you can see that little bit of product leaves the hair quite natural. And it's big. Part of this is the grip that we're getting, like Duncan said, that mannequin hair. Yeah. And I like to get the hair fairly well organized at this point. But not, I mean, you don't have to get it perfect because I am going to go through now and break it up with my fingers. But I want it to be generally in the shape that I'm finishing with. Because at this point now, It's great too. This is really nice. What I would do in the shop is I'd have the person, I would get it generally into shape, and then I would just kind of have them do this. Because it's still in the shape, but that loosens up everything you just did, and that'll give you like the ultimate kind of natural look. Your fingers are great tools. Yeah. That's what your customer is going to use the most when they do their hair. That's what, that's what the customer is going to use the most. So don't be afraid to get your fingers in there. The other thing that's great to use is a bit of gravity. Just have the customer really tilt their head forward, and then you can kind of pull that hair in just a little bit different way, so that then when the customer sits back, the hair is going to work. Growth pattern on mannequin hair is really interesting. Interesting is maybe the kind word to say.
Yeah, obviously you're being very diplomatic.
Diplomatic for sure. You can see it really kind of wants to fall to this one side. And that works because of the texture. The texture lets it open up a little bit. So we get kind of this looser look now that's utilizing a lot of the texture. But now we're going to utilize the texture in a slightly different... You can see maybe Duncan wants to give you kind of a once-around of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to circle just to show where the texture's really just sitting.
This is, I mean, when you think like how people wear their hair on TV, you know, when you were looking at like the cool guy on like the TV shows, it's always got a bit of a finger movement to it. It's not like it's super flat. Normally the bad guy has his hair super flat to that, honestly. This is hero hair, and now I'm going to put some grease in it, and we're going to turn it into bad guy hair.
Because we're still scum.
Is there any questions about what I did for the styling there?
No questions. Zero Gap Magazine says, so cool, Milky. Xavier says, effing good work, dude. Lauren says,
is that Xavier from France?
Yeah.
Super cool. It's good to see you, man. I still have to get back to Freeport. There's kind of been a pandemic going on.
Nope, everyone's really enjoying it.
Oh, cool. Excellent. Oh, sorry. I'm putting a lot of grease. This is the pink now. Sorry.
A little bit of pink.
Pink. A little bit.
Hey, that's
grease is different. Again, like I said, we're doing bad guy hair now.
Yeah.
The thing with grease is it's about coating. This is the kind of product you put this in the hair, and then the guy would not have to worry about it until he came back. And I don't know, our customers seem to love that.
It sounds about right in my book.
Thank you for bracing this, Duncan, because this is also really, really strong stuff.
Yeah, and tripods don't give a lot of resistance.
No. The cool thing with the pink is you can actually get a very natural effect if you take a tiniest scrape of it and just scrunch it at the roots, because what you'll end up with is just pretty much dirty hair. It's just the perfect dirty hair. But if you want to get like a really slick effect with it, that's when you want to kind of load it in, because you want to make sure that that hair is coated from the ends to the scalp. You can see this is Duncan. Bracing, because you want to make sure that that product is spread through the hair. This is really weird to do on a man.
I think Rob always says it really nice. Is when products like this, he says, if your customer isn't crying a little bit, you're not doing it right.
That tells you something about Rob's haircut.
It does tell you a lot about the way Rob works. Yeah. This mannequin hair.
This mannequin hair.
Yeah.
Good lord. Well, this is how you do a psycho as well, just so everyone kind of maybe wants to have some frame, is you really scrunch that hair down, and then you just pick it out. Normally, a psycho would actually do this at home, upside down as well.
Yeah.
Because when I had my psycho, I used to use gravity to do it. That was a while ago, but
yeah, it was a while ago. Yeah.
It's been a long time. It's been over a year since I've had hair. Again, normally, actually, this goes a little bit smoother through the hair, I got to tell you. But this mannequin hair is so fried from the amount of, just the experiences this mannequin has had in the factory, and then the experiences the mannequin had in the shop. So you really want to make sure when you're working on a person, be a little bit more considerate. But thankfully, I can really kind of just break through this and really get that product slicked through the... Normally that doesn't happen in the shop either. The hair as well. You can do, and this is actually a great trick if someone has, I like to use actually mostly when someone has curly hair, and I think Duncan can probably attest to this as well,
yes.
Is if you want curly hair to get straight, you blow dry grease into it.
Oh, yes.
The thing, though, is that hair is going to be really greasy afterwards because the grease is so soft.
Yes.
So the other thing you get is that's not a great way to get volume in the cut, I wouldn't say.
No, true. It does make for the tighter haircuts to melt it down and just get it spread throughout the hair. You can really get this really strong, like you say, the bad guy look.
Yeah, if you really want that, you can see that really slick to the head look. And I can go in high heat, low force, and just melt that grease into the hair. This is also going to increase the shine. And again, this is high heat, low force. And that'll turn this into a slick back. Pretty easily. And then if you let it cool, it's still also just going to be like cool, and you'll be able to just kind of swirl it up into a bit more of a pump shape. If you want to go for a very classic pump too, when you make choices surrounding grease, you really have to think that like the weight we are able to make, the strength we're able to make grease at now is very new. Because if you go back to the 50s, it was a lot more lighter products put into wet hair. As you know, you think that maybe the heaviest product they had was Murray's. Yeah. The pink is a lot heavier, I would say, than Murray's is. So you also want to know that if you do want to create a bit of a classic look, it's not just about putting in the heaviest pomade and doing everything you can to give it as much hold as possible. It's about movement. It's about letting the hair be itself.
And sometimes stickiness can help as well.
And that's it. Sometimes following the pink with a bit of green will give you a more classic feeling than just putting a lot of the pink in, because the pink is a very new school grease. The pink is something that, you know, you'd think about with the rockabilly revival in America in the 90s and in England in the 80s. They would be using the pink. But the actual original cats back in the 50s, before there was almost like, you know, this abundant youth culture with all these different subcultures and haircuts that are defining, which created a huge swath of new products and styles of products to use. I mean, they just used what they had. And that was a lot of soft grease. That was oil and fat they had at home. There was a lot of, there was a lot of Brill cream.
Yeah, Brill cream, brilliantine, wild root.
Yeah, a lot more tonic too than you see most people use today. That's one of the things that makes our line so specific to old school looks, is the number of tonics we have available in it.
And the one thing I want to touch on, what the people can't get through the screen, is when you melt the pink a little bit, is the smell.
The smell is really strong.
Yeah, and it really, the smell gets the customers every single time. They are really always pleasantly surprised by it.
So now you can see exactly how that texture not only creates loose looks, but it creates grip to the hair in tighter looks as well. You see, we're getting a little bit of a swirl in the front. That's the other thing I love about a real classic pompadour, is it isn't straight to the back, is it moves in the front. Is there's almost always this feeling of a parting, because you have to use the hair swirling to get the lift more than you have to use like a hair dryer to just get the hair as tall as possible and move it into shape. So a look like this, for me, feels so much more like Elvis and Johnny Cash than if it was just up, flat, you know, square.
That's what I always tell people as well. The pompadour is not always about the height.
No,
it's more about the shape.
And for me, this is super cool shape. Cool. I don't know if there are any more questions, but that was...
Nope, just lots of really great comments. Looks great. Nice, Milky. George says, so good, Jason. Well done. Great information.
Excellent. Thank you, George.
Lots of love. So let me just jump in for a second, everyone. We we do this every Monday, so be sure to join us. We're not going to be here next week, but we'll be back on February 1st. Jason will go back in and read your comments and questions. I tried to answer as many as I could, but he'll go back in and check it out and give you some more information if you need. And Duncan, Jason, thank you, gentlemen, for doing this for us this evening. We very much appreciate your time. You guys are rock stars. So
excellent. Thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in. I was so glad I got to spend the evening with all of you. I haven't talked this much since we went into lockdown. So I think I'm going to go home and drink a big glass of water.
Thank you, everyone. Everybody watching, stay safe, be well, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.